What does it mean to be French? It means being able to appreciate our rich history and celebrating great leaders of the past, like Paul Deschanel, president in the 1920s. As a politician, he is famous for making important and historic decisions such as he may have been the president, but that's boring. More importantly, he was known at the time for having the best drip in the political sphere and laying so much pipe he only married at 46 years old. Unsurprisingly, he was also a competitive gamer. To this day, he still holds second place on the leaderboard with his any percent speedrun for shortest presidency of the French server in an astonishing 216 days. He went for a strat known as quitting for medical reasons, using a combo of anxiety and depression with very clean execution. It was a world-class run that could have been optimized only a bit further, which is why first place is still held by Jean-Casimir Perrier and his legendary 203 days. Today, we will look at another one of his accomplishments, his most famous, when he accidentally yeeted himself out of the moving presidential train. On the 23rd of May 1920, 2 months after winning the presidential elections, he boarded his train in Paris for a night ride with his crew. He was traveling to the allegedly real city of Montbrison, where he was supposed to give a speech the next day honoring Émile Reymond. Mr. Reymond was a physician, senator, airplane pilot, and mustache enjoyer who died of cringe in 1914 while flying low and accidentally getting acquainted with German humor. Sometime after midnight, President Deschanel's train got close to the town of Montargis. To cope with this fact, and hoping to sleep through the nightmare, he had taken a hypnotic pill beforehand, as is customary. However, the president may have been high, but the temperature inside the train was even higher, so he started suffocating in his sleep. Half awake, he opened the window and just kind of fell on the tracks outside, still in his PJs. And it's not like they were traveling slow either. At the time, the train was going at about 50 kilometers an hour, or 31 miles an hour for those watching from Liberia. So, picture this. It's the dead of night and the president of the country is covered in blood, tripping balls and limping on the tracks in the middle of nowhere. More precisely, he was in Mignoret, backwater country so remote the Middle Ages hadn't officially ended yet. Thankfully, he wasn't hit by any oncoming train. So not only are weekly rail service strikes a great time and the perfect opportunity to meet new people, it also saves lives. After working for some time, he met a rail worker who was watching over some construction, probably making sure it was taking as much time to be completed as decreed by his union. And he introduced himself as the President of the French Republic. Now, in order for the following to make sense, I have to remind you that this was France in the 1920s. At the time, popular forms of entertainment were trying to have a positive ratio of kids living past the age of 1, choose your type of cancer to catch working at the factory, drink wine, insulting the British, and going to church to repent for the sin of living in a country bordering Germany. There was no internet, no TV, and no radio, only newspapers and people living in the moment. So when your average Frenchman has 3 kids to feed, a wife, a girlfriend, a concubine, a mistress, and an alcoholic dog, he most likely doesn't take the time to stay informed about current events. My point is, most people did not know who the president was, his name, or what he looked like.
I don't know. I never heard of no president.
So when the two men first interacted, the rail worker tipped his fedora and started farming karma with posts after posts showing he was a member of the skeptic community. However, after some back and forth, and since it was during his working hours, he realized he had nothing better to do. And since the man was clearly hurt, he took him to the nearby house of a flagman where the president's wounds were treated and he could rest while the local police was called. The flagman's wife would later tell journalists that she did not recognize the president.
Who?
But could deduce he was an important man because he had clean feet. And this is the perfect illustration of the French countryside. Not much has changed. Communications were slow, so it took some time before a car came for Paul Deschanel, And then he rejoined with his team and his probably hyperventilating chief of staff. Although the incident was mostly only a nuisance for a few hours, it had great consequences. It has been a great eye-opener to the dangers faced by French heads of state. The previous president, Raymond Poincaré, bravely opened up publicly about the horrendously traumatic, dangerous opening systems of windows in the presidential train. Also, the press wrote some cruel articles and caricatures of this private matter.
You are the enemy of the people.
What man does at night while high on a train should remain his business.
I'm just glad you're doing this in the privacy of your own room.
Sadly, the fall and having to interact with someone from the province accelerated the decline of the president's mental health and contributed to his resignation only a few months later in September, securing that second place on the leaderboard. However, since you can't keep a politician away from an easy paycheck for too long, he came back a few weeks later as a senator. This drip is not gonna pay for itself. Unfortunately, his health still wasn't that great and he died of a pleural emphysema 2 years later on April the 20th, 1922. So, what's left today of Paul Deschanel and his railway stunt? Sadly, not much. Only a small monument erected in Mignoret on the 20th of May 2000 commemorating the incident. And it is the opinion of the current French government that this is a shame and a mistake. And that's why I'm here. For a president who was only in office for a few months, this is quite the legacy. You have some gamer cred, clean feet, a devious drip, and an iconic event teaching kids the importance of railway safety. He was clearly a true leader, and we should strive to make him more famous. Don't forget to pay your taxes by subscribing so the government can fund the next video. Vive la République et vive la France!